Good morning. I'm just at the Premier's press conference and I'm going to ask some questions in a while. It's going to start anytime now.
To all our radio listeners, we are here at the Social Security Convention Thursday, February 29th, the very last day of the month of February, and we're expecting Premier Bradley to give us updates as it relates to matters relating to the island of Nevis, matters relating to the people's information. So we're hoping to get some good information this morning. A lovely day for press conference, sunny outside. So we're hoping that the events of today will go along with the weather. We're now seeing still waiting for the arrival. So
That's Von Radio there making the announcement. And this is the Permanent Secretary, Wakely Daniel, going to give the announcement. Yeah, the Premier will be here anytime now. So just waiting his arrival. As I was saying, I'm going to ask some questions as it relates to matters of national interest, and it's going to be great.
We understand that we welcome the Premier.
Morning.
Kindly seated. A top of the morning to everyone. I bid you a most hearty welcome to February's edition of the Premier's Monthly Press Conference. For those who are joining us for the first time, these press conferences are designed to impart information and to bring a sense of openness and accountability to the Nevis Island administration. As per usual, the Premier will make his statement, and members of the press corps will be given the opportunity to ask their questions. In so doing, you're kindly asked to give the name of the agency that you represent, just in case we have to give you further information at the end of this press conference. You're kindly asked also to put your phone on silent if your circumstances allow, or put them on vibrate. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark H. Bjorn.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press. The 29th day of February. It means that we're here on
Hello, good morning all. My name is Bjorn, and I am an independent media professional with special focus on Africa and the Caribbean. And you can find me on YouTube and Facebook. My YouTube channel is Bjorn Love Africa. Also the same on Facebook. Follow and subscribe. Now, question number one, Mr. Premier. Well, before I start, just this morning I was thinking to myself that earlier this week on Tuesday, I was a Rams worker, a Rams warehouse worker, and now today I'm a professional journalist with questions in hand and the cameras on me. Life is amazing, right? Question number one. In regards to the hospital and airport projects, do you have pictures, drawings, or video animation that show how these important facilities will look once they are completed? And also, do you have an end date for the hospital and airport project yet? Question number two, The government announced earlier a pension scheme for non-established government workers. However, there are established large private companies in St. Kitts-NEVIS who have been in business for over 50 years, making lots of money, but they have no pension plan in place for their workers. Question is, can the government do something about this? And do you think that this is fair? Question number 3, moving to foreign policy now. For several years, I have been very disappointed with the foreign policy of St. Kitts-NEVIS as it relates to Africa. For example, at the last Prime Minister's press conference, the Foreign Minister, Dr. Denzel Douglas, named several countries in St. Kitts-NEVIS that we will be working with. However, I took note that there, out of 54 African countries, not even one was mentioned. And also yourself, Mr. Premier, you served as Foreign Minister of St. Kitts-NEVIS for 7 years. And I took note, out of the 54 African countries, you did not take a trip to any one of them. Considering we are 98% black country, St. Kitts-NEVIS is predominantly black African people. So what is the reason why St. Kitts-NEVIS is not making any effort to reunite our people with our motherland, Africa? Question number 4, visa issues between the Caribbean and African countries continue to be a major problem. Just a few days ago, a very popular bishop named Joshua Mapunga from Zimbabwe was detained in Dominican Republic for 4 days, and then he was deported to Jamaica. Also, a very popular YouTuber by the name of Wadamaya from Ghana with 1.5 million subscribers. He was denied a visa to Antigua, and then he made a Facebook post, and the Prime Minister himself, Bjorn, came on the Facebook post and approved his visa on his Facebook post. So do you think these visa issues are acceptable, considering we are one people, the Caribbean and Africa? And do you think that having influencers such as these two men, do you think there are benefits to the Caribbean in terms of our tourism and bringing economic prosperity to the Caribbean? Because we are millions of very wealthy Africans out there. So what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Hanley. Welcome back. We missed you here at the Premier's press conference, and I'm happy that you said that you have moved. Shows how easy it is to be a journalist. You move from ramps to journalism in a day. So that was, I think, like moment for you. So welcome back, Mr. Hanley, and we're happy to have you. You asked about the hospital and airport projects. You asked about the pictures, renderings. In fact, we had done at the very start of the hospital project. Because that project has been delayed, perhaps you have forgotten, but we did actually an animation that was put out. So I can try and find that for you and send it to you again, of that project, or how we anticipate that project will look. You see how the project will look already from the outside, because the exterior is finished. We in fact painted it and have it finished so that you'll have a perception looking at it now as to how that final project will be done. As I've said in the past, the only thing left for us to do now is the interior, and that is what we have had the delays on, and we hope to be moving forward that very shortly. On the airport, I'm told that the renderings are being completed, and it is my anticipation that for the next set of consultations commencing in March, that we should have renderings available. Those will be put out widely to the media, and also will be on the NIA website so that persons can look. You asked an end date for both projects. I don't want to hazard an end date at this point. Let me get them started, and then once we can do that, we can talk about an end date. But anticipation currently is that our hospital should be started this year, and the airport should also start this year. I think once we can get that done, then we can talk about what the anticipated end date of those projects is going to be. The pension scheme for any workers, you asked about private companies. I have no control naturally over what private companies do. I encourage them, of course, to pay their workers well and to put in place the necessary protections for their workers. I think that it will be a matter for the government to consider whether legislatively you can force private companies to put in place some type of pension scheme. You mentioned pension, but some of them also do not have adequate health coverage insurance for their workers. So both will need to be looked at. So I think you raise a very important point, and it is a matter that I think we need to look at carefully. I am meeting with the Chamber of Commerce at their quarterly conference in Nevis shortly, very shortly, I think in another week or two. And I will certainly raise this with them because I think you raised an important point. You talk about foreign policy. As you said, I was a former foreign minister, and so those questions are perhaps better directed at the current dispensation in Bastille, the current foreign ministry. And we know that Dr. Denzel Douglas, who was prime minister for 20 years and a seasoned diplomat and politician, and he's now the foreign minister. I share your view, Mr. Han. I believe that the future of the Caribbean lies with Africa. And I've said so for some time, that we ought, for all the reasons that you have said, seek to have a closer relationship with Africa. If my colleagues in the cabinet that I served in at Team Unity are truthful, they will say that I was always a very strong advocate for directing our attention south and engaging what I refer to as South-South cooperation. And we need to animate that relationship with Africa. You said that you were disappointed in me that I had not been to Africa, but that is not actually true, because I signed diplomatic relations with Senegal in Dakar, and I would have traveled also to Morocco in Africa. I admit that I did not go to as many African countries as I would have liked, but I certainly would have gone to Morocco and engaged a very high level diplomatic discussions in Morocco, and I would have gone to Senegal, where I signed with their foreign minister at the time diplomatic relations in Dakar. In fact, I was very pleased in Senegal to have been accompanied by Eustace Theo Wallace from right here in Nevis, who speaks French, and that was helpful for me because I don't speak French, so he was able to translate. So I just want to correct that I have in fact visited the continent, although I would admit that perhaps not as often and not as many places as I would have liked to. During my tenure as foreign minister, because I'm going to wrap that down into your visa question as well, I thought that there was an intrinsic value in pursuing visa waiver arrangements with the rest of the world. And I know there were times when we announced these visa waiver agreements that members of the public scoffed. Many of them said, well, nobody wants to go there. But that was never the point. The point is that we wanted the KITTS-NEVIS passport to be the most powerful passport of its kind in our region, Caribbean and Latin America. In the Caribbean, we had, through the efforts of the foreign ministry during my tenure, drawn level with the Bahamas and was exceeded only by Barbados. I gather that we have fallen behind them because, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, we have not carried on with that momentum that we had. The only country that I gather we've signed visa arrangements with, visa waiver arrangements with, in the last 2 years now, has been Zimbabwe, I'm told. And I gather that the Saudi Arabian government has granted us a special arrangement where we become only the 4th country in this hemisphere that can access the Saudi visa online. So they've allowed us an online entry to Saudi Arabia. Only Panama, Canada, and the United States have that privilege. KITTS-NEVIS becomes the 4th. So that is a significant development in my view that this government, new government, has achieved. That is the federal government and Dr. Douglas. Of course, a lot of hard work over the years has resulted in us regaining a qualified visa waiver with Canada as well. And that would have come, again, under Dr. Douglas's tenure. I did say to my friends in Canada jokingly that they waited until I left to grant us what we've been agitating for 7 years. But you know, these things happen in their own time. And to Dr. Douglas's credit, he did extend thanks for the work that had preceded him, because I believe he understood that that work had been done, and so this was the position. But more specifically to your point about Africa, I believe that we can benefit from a greater engagement with Africa. I have said in the cabinet when I was a member, and I say it now again publicly, that we are being foolish. I know it's strong language, but it is language that I would use. We're being foolish in the Caribbean by continuing to look northwards, continuing to look towards the United States, continuing to look towards Canada, continuing to look towards Europe, when they themselves are looking to Africa. So how odd is it that we as black people who are of Africa are looking north when north is looking south? Because all of them are now looking to see how they can engage in a greater way with Africa. You look at a country like Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, has some of the largest deposits of minerals that the world now needs. Coltan, all of these minerals for our cell phones, all of the chips that are manufactured. And we see China rushing in. We see France, you realize now in the Sahel region, where you have Niger, Burkina Faso, and some other country, Mali, I think, have told France that they must leave, and they're now broken with ECOWAS because they want to have their own affiliation. Africa is where it's happening. Congo has one of the youngest populations in the world. One of the youngest populations in the world. Africa on a whole has one of the youngest populations in the world. They have resources. They have youth that give vigor and vitality. And I often wonder, what are we doing in the Caribbean? What are we doing? Because we're always making trips to America, to Canada, and very rarely, in fact, the only prime minister that I've seen that has reached out in a significant way, it appears, to Africa is Mayor Motley, Prime Minister Motley of Barbados. I've seen it in Kenya, I've seen it in Ghana. We have not been reaching out in the way. I had a very moving experience in Senegal. I went to a place called Gorée Island. And Gorée Island, there was a dungeon where our forefathers were kept before they were shipped off to the Atlantic. And there was this famous door of no return. Once they went through that door and onto the ship, they never came back. And for me, it was a deeply spiritual. You couldn't help it. The guide was there, but there was something, almost like there was a spirit moving in that place that you could not help but feel and hear and sense the level of misery that our people would have endured in those dungeons before they came here. Caribbean people must understand that only the strongest survive that journey now. Because people were captured inland, taken to the coast, kept in dungeons, put on ships, sailed across, and this wasn't a luxury liner, they were shackled in the bowels of ships, sailed across the Atlantic to come here. Only the strongest survive. And what does that tell us? That we come from a bloodline that is the strongest that Africa had to offer. But we have not been willing, it appears, to engage with Africa. I recall some time ago when Dr. Tedros, I believe he's of Ethiopia, was vying to be head of the WHO. And I recall the testy meeting that we had at the CARICOM level about who will support Tedros. And there was some Caribbean countries, no, want him. We're going with Africa, let us go. Because there were countries from the West that were also vying. And I had to speak up. I said, well, let us throw our support with Ethiopia. And I have been an advocate, and I continue to be an advocate, that KITTS-NEVIS should have an embassy in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. I have said so. Ethiopia is the seat of the African Union. The African Union, as you say, is 54 members strong. Could you imagine if those 54 countries of Africa were to be able to pool their diplomatic weight with the 13 countries of CARICOM at the UN? That gives us nearly 60 countries, nigh 1/3 of the members of the UN. Could you imagine if Africa and the Caribbean voted as a bloc? That's an important issue. They know that they have to deal with Caribbean and Africa. It is a win-win-win situation. But for whatever reason, we have not followed up. And I think it's a mistake. Now, by way of self-defense, let me say that I did try my very best to engage with Africa. If you look at the 7 years, we developed diplomatic relations with a large number of African countries that we didn't have before. And we developed visa waiver arrangements with a large number that we didn't have before. So I can remember countries like Mozambique, Kenya, Senegal, a number of countries. I did, my last trip I recall as foreign minister, I was in Serbia. I was able to develop relations with countries like Sao Tome and Principe, small African countries. Niger, I believe we had relations with. Burkina Faso, we developed relations with. So the truth is that it was an ongoing effort. I would like to see that effort sustained. And I'm not saying anything here publicly that I've not suggested privately to the new foreign minister, because we had a very well-oiled machinery. From the office in New York, there's a young lady there called Ghislaine Williams, who was excellent at engaging with her counterparts, particularly the African embassies, to try and get visa waiver arrangements. We also had in London our High Commissioner Kevin Isaac, excellent at getting these things done. And so I think that it's an important initiative. From Taiwan, we were able to get Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, I think, now known as Eswatini, visa waiver. All of these are countries in Africa that we were able to cement relations with. Sierra Leone, Zambia, the Gambia, all of these we would have done during my tenure. I believe, Mr. Hanley, that more effort is needed, concentrated effort is needed. In fact, I believe that what we need at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in St. Kitts and Nevis now, and if we don't want to do it at the level of St. Kitts and Nevis, then certainly at the CARICOM level, we need a desk, a unit that is specifically just about Africa and promoting our interests with Africa. One of the things that moved me, again, about Senegal, and I will end here, is that when I was there, I attended a reception, and a chap who was a former foreign minister of Senegal embraced me. First time I met him, and he said, "My brother." And I said to him, "Why do you call me your brother?" And he said, "Well, we are brothers." He said that the Caribbean is part of the 6th region of Africa, which is their diaspora. And that Africa, in fact, recognizes us as part of them. Because, as you know, Africa has 5 regions: East, West, North, South, and Central. And so the diaspora is the 6th region of Africa. And he greeted me with a hug as his brother, because he said, "I am from Africa." And that meant a lot to me, because I'd never been to Africa before. And here was a man greeting me as being his brother and telling me that I'm part of Africa. So I do believe that we need to do more. We need to have more of Africa taught in our schools. The history of Africa did not begin with slavery. Civilizations in Africa that we need to learn about, the wealth that Africa would have generated, the level of intellectual capacity. To this day, Mr. Hanley, they can't figure out how the pyramids of Egypt were constructed. To this day. This was all technology and techniques developed by Africans. And yet we, who are of Africa, continue to look to Europe. When, as I said, Europe is looking to Africa. So we have, I think, a reorientation that needs to happen. And the Caribbean needs to wake up to the reality that Africa and our relationship with Africa is where our future lies. Are there any more questions for me?
Yeah, I'm back in Charlestown after asking the Premier some questions as it relates to matters of national interest. Man, it was quite a morning. Hope you enjoyed this video, and make sure to like and subscribe and follow my Facebook page as well. Like and subscribe as well. And I'll see you again in the next video. Much love. Bye-bye.